ancient carvings etched into space itself. People stared at those photos on bright screens, never suspecting that something unimaginable was hidden within their pixels. A secret waiting for the perfect observer to notice. Cassini's final mission ended in 2017 with a controlled dive into the planet's thick atmosphere. A farewell that seemed ordinary to the engineers who planned it. They believed the probe's job was done, its memory full of data that would be archived and eventually forgotten. But destiny had different plans. Years later, a group of scientists turned to a new kind of intelligence, something that didn't think in human ways. They fed thousands of raw, unprocessed images into a neural network that had been designed to detect hidden patterns in cosmic datasets. The AI accepted the information with silent inhuman patience, processing every glint, every shadow, every shift in light across Saturn's colossal storms. What the AI discovered wasn't an error nor a simple curiosity to be noted in a dusty journal. It was a revelation, a discovery that made experienced researchers freeze in their chairs, unable to look away from the monitor. It wasn't that something new appeared in the image. It was that something had always been there, tucked quietly into the cloud layers, completely invisible to generations of astronomers. The story of Cassini is woven through more than 13 years of steady observation, a tapestry of discoveries that reshaped our understanding of the solar system. Cassini showed us the icy geysers of Enceladus, shooting water vapor hundreds of kilometers into black space. It mapped the methane lakes of Titan, a place where alien rain falls in endless cycles. It measured electromagnetic pulses that seemed to hum with energy as if the planet itself was alive and singing. But nothing was more carefully planned than the probe's final journey. This was the grand finale, a dive between Saturn's innermost ring and the atmosphere below. A dance of machinery and gravity so precise that a single miscalculation could have ended in a fiery collision. Before it disappeared, Cassini transmitted a sequence of high-resolution photos back to Earth. The last souvenirs from a machine that had become a distant companion to humanity. These images were categorized, logged, and stored. Scientists saw them as more data, useful perhaps, but not revolutionary. No alarms were raised. No special announcements were made. The images went quietly into archives where they might have remained forever. Fast forward to the present, and something unimaginable began to stir. A digital mind, an artificial intelligence built with quantum enhancements, was created to examine deep space data in a way no human ever could. This AI could detect the faintest structures, the smallest clues, the tiniest hints of something hidden among the chaos of cosmic imagery. Originally, it had been trained to reprocess data from the Voyager probes and the James Webb Telescope, each a technological marvel in its own era. When the researchers decided, almost as an afterthought, to run Cassini's final images through this AI, nobody expected anything unusual. But the algorithm behaved strangely. It paused mid-calculation as if puzzled by what it saw. After an uncomfortably long delay, it produced a result. Not words, but coordinates and vector patterns, mathematical markers pointing to something that shouldn't exist. The AI hadn't found an artifact caused by radiation or a glitch in the transmission signal. It hadn't detected a wandering speck of dust or static interference. It found something structural, something that had been deliberately created. Deep within the last frames Cassini ever sent, there was a geometric shape embedded into the atmosphere itself. A shape that no meteorological process could produce by chance. The image at the heart of this discovery was one the team had seen countless times before. It showed Saturn's northern hemisphere, dominated by the famous hexagonal storm that spins endlessly around the pole. This hexagon, an unbroken cyclone larger than Earth, has always been a puzzle. But the AI didn't lock onto the hexagon itself. It focused on a cluster of faint shadows near the edge of the storm, a place where no one had looked too closely. As the neural network zoomed in, a repeating fractal pattern emerged. It looked almost like a symbol etched into the churning clouds, a configuration no weather model could explain. At first, researchers dismissed it as noise, a statistical fluke. But then the same symbol appeared again and again, frame after frame, never shifting, never fading. The AI extracted this pattern and converted it into a digital code, translating the atmospheric geometry into a set of mathematical instructions. What it found next was even more unnerving. The code mirrored a structure once captured decades earlier by Voyager in the radio emissions detected at the edge of the heliosphere. Two missions separated by 40 years had recorded the same impossible signature, the same deliberate fingerprint buried in different kinds of data. Suddenly, the idea that this was a coincidence began to crumble. The research team fell silent as the realization grew. Could this pattern be a form of communication? Could it be a message deliberately hidden in the most chaotic storm in the solar system, a place no one would think to look? Why would an intelligence, if that's what it was, choose to encode something within Saturn's hexagon? Was it a marker left by a civilization that once passed through, or something still active, watching and waiting under the swirling clouds? Theories began to multiply like seeds in fertile soil. Some scientists whispered about the possibility that this was a long, dormant beacon, a signal designed to activate only when certain conditions were met. Others wondered if the hexagon itself was a kind of camouflage, a natural phenomenon manipulated to hide an artificial structure. The AI had no biases, no expectations. It simply reported what it found, and what it found defied everything we thought we understood about Saturn. In the following weeks, the team decided to test the AI further. They retrieved Cassini's magnetometer and plasma data, measurements of charged particles swirling through the planet's magnetic field. In the days that followed, the research team became almost possessed by the implications. They worked in shifts around the clock, barely stopping to eat or sleep. Every additional layer of analysis only deepened the mystery. The AI had no agenda, no imagination, no superstition. It simply processed information. Yet, it had returned again and again to the same conclusion. Cassini's final transmissions were not random. One evening, a data specialist named Juno made a discovery that would electrify the project. While re-examining the pulse recordings, she applied a deep spectral filter designed to separate overlapping signals. What emerged was a secondary modulation hidden beneath the primary wave, a subtle variance that repeated every 37 seconds. When mapped visually, it formed a spiral pattern, perfectly proportioned, reminiscent of the golden ratio. This was no mere curiosity. In nature, the golden ratio appears in everything from galaxies to the whorls of a nautilus shell. But no known physical process in Saturn's magnetosphere could create it so precisely layered in a way that only advanced signal analysis could reveal. They played the sound again, slowed down to a human range. What they heard was unlike any natural radio phenomenon ever documented, an ascending tone rising and falling in intervals that almost felt deliberate. Some of the team described it as a kind of cosmic choir, others as a mechanical hymn. But everyone agreed on one point. It did not feel accidental. Word spread quickly. Other institutions demanded access to the data. Some astrophysicists were skeptical, convinced it was an unremarkable artifact of overlapping wave interference. Others argued it was the most compelling evidence of non-human intelligence ever recorded. But the team who had first processed the signal knew something the skeptics didn't. They had found a third correlation. In a subset of Cassini's infrared scans taken in the same region of Saturn's atmosphere, there was a minute fluctuation in temperature. A heat signature shaped not like a storm or cloud, but like a precise ellipse, nearly invisible unless you looked for it. The odds of all three anomalies aligning in space and time by chance were statistically microscopic. The next step was obvious: verify the findings independently. Multiple AI systems were tasked with the same analysis, including platforms designed by rival institutions. Each in turn returned the same result. The geometry, the frequency pattern, and the thermal ellipse were all real, all measurable, and all impossible to attribute to known physics. The deeper the investigation went, the more it felt as if the Cassini mission had unwittingly stumbled onto a beacon, or perhaps a warning. What troubled the researchers most wasn't just the existence of the signal. It was the possibility that it had been waiting to be noticed. Cassini had drifted closer to Saturn's northern hexagon than any probe before it. In its final weeks, it completed repeated passes, as if something was guiding it into the precise position needed to record this phenomenon. Was that simply an artifact of mission planning or something more? In quiet moments, some team members confessed to feeling watched, as if the intelligence, if that was truly what they had discovered, was still aware of them, aware of their attempts to decipher its code. The data was shared with linguists, cryptographers, and mathematicians. The possibility of translation, of finding meaning in the signal's patterns, became an obsession. But even as the brightest minds on Earth began their work, the question remained unanswered. What had Cassini found circling Saturn? Was it a message meant to be received? A test to see whether our civilization was ready to understand it, or something so alien that the word message itself was inadequate? In the months that followed, the project grew into